We will be taking Q&A and comments throughout the hour. So whatever platform you're joining us from, feel free to interact. Post your comments, ask any questions. We'll try to get around to relevant questions throughout the hour or towards the end of the hour. We want to thank Mallory Lovestad, who is here in studio with us today, taking care of everything behind the scenes and all the setup beforehand. She always does a fantastic job for us. Really appreciate that. I did want to mention really quick that next Thursday I will be on a panel. It's called How AI is Changing Business as Usual. This is for Silicon Slopes Salt Lake City chapter at 11 from 11:30 to 1:30 at Kiln Salt Lake in the Gateway. So go Google that, Silicon Slopes Salt Lake chapter, How AI is Changing Business as Usual. Register to attend that next Thursday for a lunch and learn. Myself and several other local business leaders will be on that panel talking about how AI is currently influencing and changing the dynamic of business as we know it right now. Outside of that, we've got some really great guests coming up on TechBeat in the coming weeks and months. Keep an eye out for announcements around dates for Lance Allred, the first deaf player to play in the NBA, legally deaf player, I should say, to play in the NBA. Johnny Hanna, Paul Sheehan, John Bradshaw, and more will be joining me on TechBeat in the coming weeks and months. So let me get around to my guests of the hour today. So happy to have these guys with me. I've known them for a number of years. You know, we're kind of cheating because they are our marketing firm, but they're a great marketing firm. If you're looking for somebody who can do all your digital marketing stuff, these guys know what they're up to, and they have a really great team. And you're going to find out what it means to them to build business the right way and to build culture the right way. So my friend Greg Trimble, Greg founded Lemonade Stand, an Inc. 5000 online marketing agency that is now one of the fastest growing website and marketing agencies in the United States. Greg's passion for company culture and doing good in the world has contributed to the development of the Build Then Bless software and curriculum, a first of its kind culture operating system that improves individuals and the companies they work for. Greg is the author of 5 books. Wow, man, that's impressive.
I got a D in high school language arts, by the way.
You did?
Fun little tidbit there.
That's
so never write somebody off.
You can always change, right? Like, you know, when your mom thinks you're a hopeless case, you know, there's always hope somewhere along the way, right? Greg is also a husband and a father of 2. All right, my buddy Derek Miner. Derek is a partner at Lemonade Stand. Let's see, Lemonade Stand, which is a full service digital marketing agency, and he is passionate about creating, building, and winning in business. He is a 2X Inc. 500 and 5000 recipient and has been part of many extraordinary companies helping to build winning company cultures from the ground up. Derek is a passionate speaker, a people builder, and an enthusiastic business mentor. He enjoys cycling, skiing, playing the drums, and being outdoor with his family. Gentlemen, welcome to TechBeat. So happy to have you guys.
Earl, so good to have you. All right, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Sure appreciate it.
We're gonna have a good time this hour.
Yes.
Yeah. No drums in the studio though.
That's all right.
It's too bad because there is a guitar behind
Probably a
me.
little rusty. Maybe next one.
Yeah. Greg's played in some in a pretty cool band when you were younger. We'll get around to that here in a minute. But
definitely Derek.
I'm sorry, Derek.
Definitely Derek. I wish I could. That'd be awesome. My kids could.
Yeah. Very talented kids. Yeah, very talented. Okay.
They are definitely.
Well, let's
proud of them.
Greg, let's get around to your story as an individual, as a founder. Let's talk a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, what ultimately led to you being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Lemonade Stand is not your first venture. Kind of came out of your first venture, which funny enough was in our space, right? In the managed IT services. So let's tell everybody in the audience a little bit about who Greg Trimble is and how Lemonade Stand came to be.
Okay. So I'll try to keep it short because Derek's story is a lot more interesting than mine, and I can actually tell some of Derek's story because there's this magic on how we came together. There really is. But way back, I played a lot of baseball. I signed a full scholarship in Hawaii. Had some pro prospects to be drafted, and that was at about age 21 or so. And I ended up deciding to want to serve a mission for my church. So I left for 2 years, came back. I was probably the biggest loser ever because my scholarship was gone. I had no prospects, and I was getting older, so I couldn't get back into baseball, which is what I loved. I loved playing baseball. I loved surfing. But I did meet my wife before I left, and I was engaged for 2 years while I was gone, and she waited for me.
Wow.
And then we were married right when I got home, and she was probably like, man, hope he figures out how to take care of us, because I was not. I think I was working at a used car lot right after I got home, and
young, no big prospects.
Yeah, didn't know what to do,
but you knew how to work. I mean,
I knew how to work. Yeah, I knew how to work hard, and I learned how to talk to people. I knew, sports teaches you a lot. Coaches teaches you discipline. So I went to school, and I actually studied information systems at Cal State San Bernardino, which is one of 7.
Geeks.
Yeah, exactly, nerds, man. So my dad was a CPA. He said, you could take over the firm. I worked a couple years in accountancy and did a bunch of tax returns. And I walked in one day and I said, I don't know how you could do this your whole life. And he said, well, I said, how do you do this, especially during tax season? He said, well, I just enjoy the journey, which I think is wise advice. So not everything you do is always going to be fun. So anyway, I did know that I didn't want to be an accountant. Probably would have been the easy route. I could have taken over his firm and done that, but I went into IT, studied information security, got into the nerd stuff, and ended up starting a managed service provider.
In California.
In California. Yeah. So we service from about San Diego up to about Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Usually along the coast. Yeah. Had a lot of medical restaurants, which were horrendously difficult because they're up till 2, 3 in the morning, and the Wi-Fi goes down, and they gotta
close their day, run their X tapes, their Z tapes, and they can't do that.
All those Aloha systems and POS stuff. It's just so hard.
Oh man.
And when I say POS, I mean point of sale.
Point of sale, yeah. I know they're pieces of shit too. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, so these point of sale systems are not fun, but so we, me and my wife Kristen, we just she's always been so supportive if I wanted to try something, and so I started this IT provider and got some really clients, and it was growing and networking. And I'll tell you one thing that I was not good at, and this is one thing Derek is amazing at, and this is why we're so great together. I am not good at going into a networking place. I'm not good at that.
Like an event?
Yeah, events. I'm not good at, going to a BNI meeting or a chamber meeting.
Your introverted side comes out.
Yes, exactly.
I get that. Like I'm default introvert.
Yeah. So I was desperate to figure out a way to grow the business. And so I turned to internet marketing. And that was when LinkedIn, there wasn't much traction on LinkedIn. People were just starting to use it. And I got into SEO. And that was before no managed service providers knew anything about SEO. So I started doing SEO around search terms that would drive traffic. And all of a sudden we started ranking #1 for really good keywords for our managed service provider all throughout California. So I was handling sales. So they'd call the office and, how do you find us? I was ranking #1 in Google. So we just started growing really quickly. And, but in that time, and I know we'll talk about this later, in that time, I was worried about sales, building operations, making money, growing the business, getting all that stuff done. And
you're doing it all. And by the way, like building an MSP from the ground up, no capital,
crazy.
Solopreneur kind of thing. It's
crazy.
A grind, man. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we did something crazy stupid. We didn't have a data center, and we didn't have the equipment for a data center, but we turned a room into our own little data center. Yeah. So we actually built an application service provider, an ASP to host QuickBooks and stuff inside of a room like this.
Yeah.
But no cooling, no nothing. It was
250
crazy.
degrees. Yeah.
And servers are heating up, and You know?
I think we all try to do that.
It's-
Like we try to build our own clouds, right?
Yeah,
in our offices. Yeah.
We did, and we had a bunch of clients, and then we're like, we can't get beyond a certain number. You know, we can't scale beyond that, but you can. You can.
Yeah, we're learning as we go,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
We're learning as we go.
But so did that, and just came to the point where what I noticed is that the business, it was really fun to start. But as it got going and we started hiring people, we didn't think about who are we hiring? Are they a good fit? We didn't even establish core values,
Okay.
which is huge. And I know Derek will want to talk about that.
So you had no guiding principles.
No guiding principles. It was just
organization.
like, I mean, we wanted to be good people. We wanted to do right, work hard, show up, good, fast responses. But other than that, we had no guiding principles for our culture.
Yeah.
And so that really, really suffered. That and kind of combined with my love of marketing, as I started to see the leads just come in because of this internet marketing without me needing to go to a conference.
Yeah.
I'm like, these guys are going busting their butts at a conference, and we're just getting leads in passively,
Yeah.
And so I was like,
You
man,
figured out the
I
engine.
love this.
Yeah.
And so I started a web design company called freecustomwebsite.com. That was doing really well. And so web.com started bidding on that term and started making commercials around the concept of a free custom website. So they kicked this out. And and then Lemonade Stand came out of that. I ended up selling the MSP to some guys internally that loved running an MSP a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
And I was able to start Lemonade Stand without needing to draw any kind of salary or make any money from it for a couple of years.
Oh, that's super cool. That's super cool. And what year did you start Lemonade Stand?
It was about 2012.
2012. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's been a little over 10 years,
Mhm.
11 years or so now.
Yeah.
You started basically being an outsourced marketing firm for or agency for MSPs, right?
Exactly.
You had the MSP experience. You knew how to do digital marketing for MSPs that produce, marketing qualified leads, right, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And now you've grown, you've expanded well beyond just MSP. And again, Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America, right?
Yes.
Which congrats on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we both probably have announcements around that this year that we can't say anything about yet.
We do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool. That's cool, Greg. Thanks for, giving us a little bit of the story. I really appreciate that. So Derek, let's talk about you, talk about your formative years and, kind of how your career got started and ultimately maybe the story about how you two met and became partners. Cause, actually when I first met Greg, you were not part of Lemonade Stand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd let Greg tell that story. That's kind of a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell that story.
Man, formative years. I think probably the most formative years were growing up on a farm and having animals that my dad always said, they don't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
and learning really early on how to work.
Yeah.
And what responsibility really meant. And showing up, when other living things are counting on you.
Yeah.
And those were really important lessons to me early on.
Pigs need their slop by 4:30 a.m.
Thank goodness we didn't have any pigs. But character building from hauling hay in the summer and what that feels like when it's this hot outside and you've got alfalfa going down the back of your neck and you still just have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right to the pipes have just frozen in the barn and you have to go bucket water from the neighbor's house, which isn't close, and making that happen. So I think those were really formative years for me, and lessons that that I learned working side by side with my dad were absolutely extraordinary. Always leaving things better than you found them, right, was something that he always talked about. Making sure everything's taken care of before you go to bed, waking up early, right? Those are all really important things that I think I learned. And then getting into work, I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial bug, and I think everyone does a lemonade stand. Everyone tries to mow lawns, do things like that to try to make a way for themselves. And, an opportunity to go and serve as well for my church gave me an opportunity to really learn how to work in the humidity of in the panhandle of Florida and how to show up. But man, I think what really those experiences gave me the opportunity to really see people where they're at and learn to love people and find ways to help and serve no matter where people are at. And that was super helpful. Coming home, I worked with my brother-in-law and had an amazing experience in real estate, interestingly enough, and interest rates went way up, 99, 2000. And I'm like, okay, all these mortgage companies we were working with are now no longer around.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
And
bubble.
technology had always really enamored me, and I really wanted to get into it. And
It was the right time. It was a real estate bubble bursting and the dot-com
Dot-com.
boom just, starting to hit its stride for a few years anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I joined an amazing dot-com startup. Most people say, oh, it was amazing because you see how things ended up. But throughout that, there were times when we first started there that it's like, hey, guess what, guys? We're out of money. Okay. Well, I just signed a really cool deal and I want to see it through. I just made commitments to this guy. And what was so crazy when we made that announcement, the next day, a ton of people showed back up at the office. We're like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Well, I'm going to take care of that customer. I'm taking care of that customer.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of us worked for free for several months, but we learned what stock was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So 2 months before we graduated, and I'll probably share more about this story, had the opportunity to participate thanks to amazing leaders who believed in, ability to show up and make a difference and give you the opportunity and autonomy to go and build something. And I forever, frankly, I was spoiled rotten, about how we built. Yes, we had crazy ups and downs, but I could still call any one of those team members and they'd pick up the phone and have an amazing conversation. And that was years ago.
That's cool.
And that then led to some of the founding team members were core team members. The company is called aha.com and led to starting Orange Soda, which was really one of the first digital marketing companies helping national brands on a local level.
Something's going on here. That. Lemonade stand, orange soda.
Citrus, citrus for life.
Yeah.
I think for me. So, so we started Orange Soda in 2006. It was incredible. That's when people were still using the yellow pages.
Yeah.
And, we started using them as boosters, right? For seats or for doorstops or whatever. And it was just really interesting timing, the way that online marketing was taking things by storm. And we were able to build a really unique offering and partner with some that we'd had deep relationships within the space. So we're able to grow, Orange Soda and having this pretty significant growth rate year over year. We sold that company in 2012. Man, crazy. And and have been a part of it.
Was it Inc. 500 you hit?
It was. We hit both Inc. 5000 and Inc. 500.
Yeah, that's impressive.
At Orange Soda. And really, as you think about it, the team and the people that we have there were extraordinary. And it's really fun.
The thing that's super impressive, sorry to interrupt, but the thing that's super impressive is hitting Inc. 500 as a services company, scaling product companies, technology companies, SaaS companies, right? Much easier, to go at a faster rate than scaling services, right?
It's true. We had an amazing and a super committed team. And even when I see, people from those days, and it's so fun to see the roots that kind of lead back, a lot of the amazing companies here in Utah, I would have the opportunity to work with a lot of their, the founders of that company. And I've been a part of another amazing companies as well. And what was so interesting is after, we sold, I'd still have people, hey, who do you recommend for websites? Who do you recommend for online marketing? And I had a few that I'd refer to, and I know they take really good care of them because I follow up. And then when Greg and I crossed paths, we met through a mutual friend and said, hey, do you want to go and grab lunch? And maybe it was breakfast the first time.
It was breakfast. I better tell that story because there's too much, because there was things going on that he didn't know about. So this is
what year is this? Then?
So he's at Orange Soda.
Yeah.
I have no idea who the founders are at Orange Soda.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't.
You just know you're competing against them.
I knew Orange Soda.
Yeah.
They were like the leader in the industry, and I was an MSP, still running an MSP, starting a marketing agency inside the MSP.
Yeah.
And knowing that I was going to transition to marketing and focus on marketing, and Orange Soda was like we loved their feel, their how their culture, their just look and feel, their website, their offerings, all that stuff. And so we kind of modeled lemonade stand after orange soda, you know, on this little, they're national. We're this little guys in Southern California, just trying to get a few clients. And anyways, but
you always follow the playbooks of good businesses, right?
Yeah, there were 2 or 3 that we followed, and orange soda was like top on the list. And so I didn't know Derek, no idea. In Southern California, we're living down there. We found a place in Utah, and we just loved it. And so I made an excuse to go up here and start another location up here. So I bought a building in Orem and came up here and started working. And about that time, one of our mutual friends that we didn't know was a mutual friend, his name's Taylor Halverson. And he's a business professor at BYU. And he just said, hey, I think you guys need to meet. I'm going to set up a breakfast. So we go and meet at Neater's at like 7 a.m. I'm like, dude, this is...
You're intense. 7 a.m. for breakfast, man. Yeah.
It's okay, let's go.
Greg's like, I'm a Californian. Like, let's do breakfast at 9.
Yeah. After you're done surfing. So we go to breakfast and we meet, and Taylor says, hey, this is Derek Miner. He was one of the founders of Orange Soda. And I'm like, what? Wait, orange soda? And so we hit it off right away. And I kind of just begged Derek to come hang out with me, and he did. But awesome. That's pretty cool. Like we're modeling a company after the company that he's in, founded, and then we're sitting at breakfast. I mean, you gotta feel like I feel like it was just like meant to be.
Right.
I mean, and the alignment that we have on things, it was just crazy because we're sitting at this table at 7 a.m. at a Neater's in Orem, and it's like, it was just such a cool fit. The things that have come as a result of Derek coming on board is just, I call Derek the Midas man. Whatever he touches turns to gold. And that's happened with us. Ever since Derek joined, we've 3x, 4x'd year after year. And because I was very good at operations,
and that's why
MSP, right?
Yeah.
MSP, retention, customer service. I would do sales because I had to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I can
You're
answer
a founder,
questions.
you gotta do it. Yeah.
I had to do it, but like he just is just so good. And so we've grown
and already been there, done that too. So
yeah, he knew exactly what to do. And it's funny because he joined. We had letters back, emails back and forth for about a year, trying to work out the details, figure it out. And he joined on March 9th of 2020. And do you remember what that month was?
I do remember. Yeah.
It was about the time that everyone said shut down.
I was actually in Cuba going, how am I going to get home? What's going on here? Yeah.
So he started, and about a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, we lost a third of our book of business. Of our clients.
Right out the gate.
People were just pausing, not sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what we did? We kept working with them.
You did?
Stopped charging them.
Really?
Kept working with them.
Wow, that's
commitment.
That's commitment.
What would be the point in just sending them off? If we could just keep going. I mean, we'll go down. They're going down. We'll go down with them. That's what we want to be for our clients. Girls.
That takes a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and commitment to put your money behind it, right? Like that's
It was good, but it was cool to watch Derek sort of like deer in the headlight, like what has happened. I mean, he's coming into this thing, and there's still a learning curve on like
what did I do?
What systems and everything that we're doing, and he's just come in, and I remember just a couple of days just kind of like, deer, what the heck? And then the next thing I know, he's just head down.
Like I've seen this before. Same thing happened 99, 2000. Same thing happened 08, 09.
Exactly.
I've seen this before, and I know what happens. What we did, and what was so extraordinary, is to see the team in California, the little team we had here in Utah. We all just went to work. To show up for our clients, to try to make a difference and make an impact. And then, like, how are you guys doing this? How are you still, providing an amazing level of service? And that's just what happens when you're all in. On something and totally committed. And I'd walk in and I'd see every one of the team members just heads down. And that was so inspiring to me.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference of an embattled leader who's been through some tough times before, right? And those that haven't, it's easy to panic and, hit the eject button or, like just let the thing, fall off the cliff. Or, when you've been through some economic downturns, you take some of those playbooks from the past and you're like, okay, we're going to dig deep. We're going to figure out how to get through this. Yeah, it's cool. So
isn't that, and before you go on, isn't that an interesting thing though? And I know you're going to talk about culture later, but it's so interesting because that is a big part that helps define culture. What happens when the house is on fire?
Oh yeah.
What happens when your team is losing?
Yeah.
What happens? Do people start blaming each other?
Yeah.
Do they start talking about each other? Do they start sandbagging it? Do they start
the dysfunction?
It's all, we're on the way
to the
down.
surface.
Our winning record's gone down. We're not going to make it here. Or do they double down? Do they come together? Do they go all in?
Yeah.
Versus, oh well, guess it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's what our team did and does, and that's what we're so excited.
Having been through our own cycles, right, at Nexus IT over 25 years, and there's been plenty of them, right?
Yeah.
Some of them, influenced by economic, macro and microeconomic factors, right? And some that have been, self-induced per se, right? But I can tell you, like, maintaining really good culture is not super challenging during times of feast, right?
That's right.
During times of famine, all the dysfunction and the toxicity can come to the surface pretty fast, right? And it definitely tests, who you are as a founder, as a leader, and how that reflects on how your team shows up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit quickly about maybe just defining culture a little bit, because this is one of the most common concepts I see misunderstood in the corporate world. People think that they know what culture is, but when you get down to the brass tacks and empirical data, scientific studies that have been done, the concept of culture is different than what most people have in their mind, right? So let's talk about that real quick. What is culture really in an organization?
Derek.
Who wants it? Derek?
Well, I think it's so interesting, culture like leadership. I think if you were to talk about that, what makes a great leader? I mean, there's books and books on what makes a great leader and what makes a great culture. And every business is unique, right, around culture, but it's really how you show up for each other, right? It's the attitudes, the behavior of how you treat one another. And every single person is bought in at every level, from the shareholders to the team members at every level, executive team, management, from the very
interns,
everybody. How do they feel and
Yeah.
how are they treated?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's really interesting. What's the vibe when you walk in?
Yeah.
Or what's really the way that we define, you want a really good litmus test on what your culture looks like right now? Ask the last person that interacted with any one of your team members.
Mhm.
That's what your culture is.
Yeah.
It's that reality is, that perception is the reality that you have. And so that's the way we like to say, well, how is your culture right now? Ask anyone who just interacted with you at every level. And I think that's one of the things really important versus, I think people think corporate culture is a chapter in a business book, right? That you need to do as a checkbox. And I think historically people would go, let's go to an offsite and let's go talk about what our culture is and what it should be, right? And we come back with this amazing, mission, vision, values, and we print the vinyl letters and we put them up on the wall and we say, this feels really good. And then next week happens. All right. Are you talking about them regularly? How do you really show up around each of those values? And what do they really mean deep down? How do you get your team to internalize what is the most important? Realizing, and I like to think of it like this, especially because we live here in the beautiful Wasatch Front. As you think about how to design and create an amazing culture, it's your vision is where we're headed, right?
Yeah.
The top of the peak.
Yeah. Your
mission is how you're going to get there. And your really your core values are those guardrails.
Yeah. They define the behaviors.
Exactly. At every step of the way, so that you're like, man, here's where we're at. Now what? Great.
Yeah.
Let's look and let's course correct as needed. And it's a living, breathing thing too.
It is.
And I think being deliberate about your culture, you're going to have a culture no matter what, right? Being deliberate about it and designing it intentionally, or just naturally letting it emerge. You have a culture right now.
Always.
And that's what was so unique too, is when we came together, just how aligned we were with how we want to show up, not only for each other. Everyone talks about customer experience, but I think the magic is what happens when your team experience and your customer experience is so closely knit together and just woven. That's when, and a little metaphor here, beautiful tapestry. I'm just thinking of all this cool room here, but how everything comes together and works really well. Anyway, I don't get too excited about this stuff, as you can probably see. So that's much more than a definition, hopefully a definition around being deliberate and designing really the feeling, the ethos, and the behaviors that describe what happens when I interact with you or anyone in your team, and how consistent is that. Gives you a really good idea about what your culture looks like.
Yeah, I like that a lot. A couple of quick things I take from that is you have a culture no matter what, whether it's by design or it's by default. You have a culture within an organization. You have a culture in a family. You have a culture in society, right? Where whatever sort of tribe you're in, right? Whatever group of people you're in, a culture exists. And in business, those companies that achieve at the highest level are those companies that have a highly productive culture by design. That doesn't emerge by default, right? And it emerges by defining values, the guiding principles, right, of an organization, and then living by those things. And guess what? Here's the thing that many leaders miss, and this comes from our head of culture integration and leadership development, Dr. Jeb Hurley, who he has a degree in neuroscience.
Doctor is the key word.
Doctor. He has a doctorate in the neuroscience and the behavioral science behind high performing teams, right? And the way he puts it is culture is top level leadership behavior at scale throughout the organization. So the way the top level leadership team behaves, whether that's however your organizational structure looks, right? If there is dysfunction and toxicity at that level, if there is a lack of showing up, a lack of leading, a lack of accomplishing things and executing,
permeates the organization.
The top level leaders set the bar, right? And if you set the bar low, that will be your culture. People will live up to the expectations that you set, and if you set that bar high and you continually raise the bar, which is that's what we do here around here at Nexus IT. It's okay, we reached the bar we wanted to reach. Now where's the next step, right? Because we have the vision of the summit we want to get to, but we got to get there a step at a time, right? So you raise that bar step by step. Anyways, go ahead.
That's a good point, because it's not just working hard for a couple years to establish a culture, because you got to be deliberate. And you got to define what do you want this culture to be, but then establishing it and then working hard to maintain it. Because just like everything, I know this is nerd stuff again, but the second law of thermodynamics, right? Entropy, everything you see, everything is breaking down. Everything is tending toward disorganization. Everything is going from a state of good if you built it and it's nice. It's if you don't maintain it and put emphasis and energy and consistent attention to it, then it's going to slowly, you're going to say, oh yeah, we set this in motion.
You're going to plateau for a while.
Yeah, exactly. This thing's working. And then all of a sudden you're like, a couple years later, you're like, what happened? Well, it's because you stopped maintaining it. You stopped taking care of it.
Yeah, it's another one of the misnomers out there, and there is a way to do this, right? Effectively, but I hear a lot of founders, it's kind of there's this concept of a pinnacle you get to as a founder of, hey, my business is on autopilot, right? I don't have to do much. I can just go, ride, drive my boat around in the Florida Keys or, whatever, right? My business just, it takes care of itself, right? And every time I hear that, I'm like, A business that isn't growing and that doesn't have somebody tending intentionally to the vision and, achieving the vision of that business, it's going to stagnate and it's going to plateau, and ultimately it's going to start to decline, right? Now, okay, you can be a founder in a business and you can hire leadership to come in and drive that for you, right? So that's entirely doable, but oftentimes I see, founder CEOs make the mistake of, I'm still in the CEO chair, but I'm going to check out, right? My business is on autopilot. I'm going to check out. And it's like, man, I can tell you what's going to happen in 18 or 24 months. Like you're going to be in turnaround mode. You're going to be back digging deep, trying to, get your business back on track, right?
You're so right.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, let's talk about the impact of culture on real world business outcomes. How does culture show up? Why is it important? Why does it even matter? Greg, you want to take a stab at that?
I'll take a first stab at it. First of all, from a business owner, like I look at our team and I think of them like they are so important to me. Like I see them, but I also see their families, see their kids, I see their goals, their aspirations, how they feel. That's one of our biggest things is safety inside of our organization, that people feel safe there. But also that they have meaning and purpose. And so that's a huge priority for me is that team, through the manifestation of your culture and what they get out of it, how they feel when they're there, that's huge. But then also for a client, for our clients, so those two big things, clients, team. And for a client can see, they can feel immediately, like from the first call, from the first response to a sales form, they can feel the energy of a company. And I think that the culture really dictates how those people react to clients. And then in the, not just the sales, but as it goes on to onboarding, it goes on to client service, a client can feel the heartbeat of that organization. They can feel if there's turmoil. They can feel if there's a lack of safety, if there's a lack of trust, if there's a lack of unity. They can feel those things, which is going to increase your attrition rate. It's going to increase your churn rate. And so I think, real world for us, I can honestly say that I think that our culture that we established before COVID was what got us through COVID. I honestly believe that we all came together because of that culture and that feeling that we had together, and the clients felt it. So one application is we decided to invest in our clients during that time.
Yeah.
There were clients that couldn't pay. They're like, hey, I got to wait for some funds to come in. I got to wait for the PPP loan to come in. I got to wait for this. We might not have got paid for months. But we said, hey, we're going to invest in you because that's one of our culture items, is that we want to truly partner with our clients rather than just make it a transaction.
Yeah.
Get to know them, figure out what makes them tick, figure out like not just the business transaction, but what's going on in their personal lives, and see them as people rather than just a transaction. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me, that's been a big one.
Yeah.
I'll just share, I think, 2 stories that are probably the most, maybe 3, if I can.
All right.
One totally unrelated that literally changed my whole paradigm on how to show up, no matter where you're at in an organization. I'll end with that one. But 2 really simple stories. One of the coolest things is getting feedback, or we have a channel that we all communicate on, and see an amazing note from one of our clients. Hey, thanks so much for the report. Appreciated everything. On a side note, I've never been so touched by your thoughtfulness for one of my family members who was ill and what you sent to them.
Yeah.
I sat there and looked at it. I'm like, that's culture in action.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do that. How we show up for our clients, and there are stories that we really like that on a weekly basis, right? Yeah. To share and to learn from one another what's working and how are we staying on top of, really building these relationships, as Greg said. Another one that may seem really simple, but had such an impact on me. One of our newer team members who had just joined, and I was on a call during one of our lunches with a really important client, and I told the rest of the team, like, hey, I can't be there because I've got to take care of this client. I was on the phone with them, and I knew what they were ordering, and I'm like, oh, it's one of my favorite lunches. Dang it, But this team member went out and brought me back my favorite lunch. And I stood there at the door. He's like, hey, this is for you. And I'm like,
that's cool.
Coop.
Yeah.
What? I said, number one, thank you.
Yeah.
Number two, how did you know?
Yeah.
He said, well, I went back on previous orders and I saw what your favorite was and I went and bought it for you.
Jeez.
But that happens all the time,
which
is so amazing. How our team shows up for each other is inspiring to me, and I think to others at every level. And that's what.
Let me remind you of what you like to say about in a good culture.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about getting stabbed in the back because everybody has your back. Derek loves to say, Derek says that all the time, and it's true.
I love that.
And it's how our team members show up for each other.
That's a good
Derekism. Well, it's how you show up for each other. And I'll tell you the one story that's totally unrelated, and hopefully I don't get too autobiographical here and bore the audience, but this was so impactful for me. I had the opportunity, while my wife was pregnant, we had a little teeny dude. He was 18 months old. My wife's pregnant. We're like, we've got to go and spend some time together, before this, before our baby's born.
Yeah.
And we went to Hawaii, which is amazing.
Nice.
And it was like, okay, that's great. We flew into Kona, and the airport there is so cool, and landed. And when you travel with dependents, it's a circus. Yeah. We have everything. We have a stroller. We've got car seats. We've got the car seats, and my wife's pregnant. So we've got plenty of things for our time there. And we show up, and it's a late flight. We walk out to the curb, and we've got our belongings strewn across the curb here, and this rental car, shuttle bus picks us up. And this amazing driver jumps out and says, how can I help? She jumps out, she starts grabbing all this stuff, bringing it in. And I said, wow. I'm like, thank you so much. And I said, I can't believe what just happened. Maybe it's because I'm really tired, but thank you. I was so grateful that she'd come out and help us that way. And she got on the little intercom and said, hey, welcome to Hawaii and aloha. And everyone's like, oh, aloha, it's an overnight flight. We're like totally freaked out. Why are you even asking us? Why are you trying to cheer us up? And she's like, no, that's not going to work. I said aloha. And everyone's like, aloha. The whole bunch. She's like, I'm going to be your driver for the next minute and 24 seconds. So pay attention, because when you bring your car back, you're going to experience kind of the same thing. Yeah. And all of a sudden, my tired eyes, I'm like, wait a second. Yeah. This is the shuttle bus driver for a rental car company. Why? Yeah, I get it. She lives in Hawaii.
Sure,
that's kind of my default. I'm like, why was she so awesome? Because she lives in paradise. Yeah. But she ended, and as everyone was getting off, I just sat there, and I remember her name was Corey. And I'm like, Corey, I said, I speak frequently about customer experience and doing small things that make the biggest difference. Mm-hmm. And I said, what you just showed for me may not have meant anything to anyone else, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you did. And she's like, that's what I'm here for. Yeah. So can I fast forward a year later? Yeah. I'm on a business trip. We are going to Kona. And as we're starting, welcome, you're starting your descent. And I'm like, hey, one of the guys I was traveling with, I'm like, hey, where did we rent the car from? And he said, we rented from Alamo. I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have a story for you guys? This is the coolest thing ever. And I start telling this story about Corey. Yeah. And I'm like, how cool would it be if Corey picks us up? Yeah. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, man, back in my mind, that'd be the coolest thing ever. So the rental car, same van, pulls up, because I think they'll probably have one, because that airport's so small. And there opens the door, and there's Corey. I'm like, Corey, what's up? She's like, you're weird.
You're weird. I have no idea who you are, man.
I'm like, Corey. I said, you probably don't remember this, but I came here a year ago with my wife. We were trying. She's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I totally remember.
She's like, who's this creep? This guy's been stalking me. How does he know my name? Yeah.
But what was so interesting, Earl, is she said, I've never been treated like that by anyone. And I remember that. I'm like, well, you probably remember from all the stuff we had all over the place, and the car seats and the mattress and all that stuff. But I was so impacted. She got on the microphone as we were driving away. Mm-hmm. And she said, welcome to Hawaii and aloha. And everyone had the same thing. Mm-hmm. And she said, I especially want to welcome my ohana back to the island. And I was like, are you serious? So of course I got a picture with her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Corey, thank you for showing up and being so amazing. Here is an entry level
Yeah.
team
Right.
member
Sure.
that shows up amazingly for everyone who comes in contact with
For
that
many
brand.
people, a
Where
very
did I
mundane job.
Where do I rent now? Where have I rented? I've rented from there because of that experience of her, and the CEO probably has no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a couple, 3 books for the audience that
Okay,
will go
cool.
perfect with that, just so they have some good resources. The Fred Factor.
The Fred Factor. Okay, I've not heard of this
The
one.
Fred Factor
Okay.
is amazing. Energy Bus and the Go Giver.
Yeah, Go Givers are awesome.
Those 3 go with Derek's story
Yeah.
just so well, and that's
Raving fans would also be
Raving Fans, another one.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Fred Factor. Get that
Yeah,
one, Earl.
okay, the
I'll
Fred
send it to
Factor,
you.
I
I got it for you.
Thank you. You guys do way too many gifts. Anyways, like I can
In
get the
fact,
book.
if you're listening right now, drop a comment in the feed, and we will actually send you any of those 3 books if
Let
you
us
want.
know which books. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
There's a lot of people like,
Fred
oh,
Factor,
Fred Factor,
Energy Bus,
the Energy Bus, and the Go
the
Giver.
Go Giver. Yeah.
You read those 3. Our first core value at Lemonade Stand is smile, because that's us. I mean, you can't smile all the time, but you can try to smile inwardly.
Yeah.
You can smile in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, and bring that energy.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So I do want to just kind of highlight a couple of points real quick. You know, Greg, you mentioned that people feeling like they're in a safe environment is what, you know, ultimately helps people drive the type of behavior like Corey at Alamo and, you know, in Kona, right? You've talked about showing up, Derek, right? And just for a hack for, you know, younger leaders, younger founders out there, 100% what will help you build a high performing culture is psychological safety in your organization.
Mhm.
being safe.
And how do you build psychological safety? It's through trust, right? So when you establish an environment that is built on trust, which, you know, doesn't default to toxic behaviors and stuff like that, right? And how do you establish a culture that's built on trust? Leaders got to show up.
That's right.
Right? When you show up for your people show up for your clients, right?
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
And oftentimes you don't have to you don't even have to like teach all of the intricate principles, and you don't have to micromanage it. You don't have to build SOPs out the wazoo and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
When you give people an empowering environment where they feel good, they feel like they can do the best work of their career, they show up.
That's exactly right.
They get the job done, they do things right, and they'll go the extra mile for the clients without being asked to do it. Right?
That's so true. And I love that. One of our core values, do what you say what you mean. And how do you build trust? It's by making a commitment and keeping it.
And yep, absolutely.
Right. And then that builds brand trust, brand credibility, individual trust and credibility with others. Right. And I think that's probably one of the most challenging things to do. And as you think, I love what Clayton Christensen taught in his book, How We Measure Your Life.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because he talks about how you do things for one scenario may be different. He said, think about a boiling pot of water. It softens carrots and hardens eggs, and it's so true as you think about that and how you interact with every team member is different. And we want every team member to come and show up their best selves every single day. And we want to support that.
Yeah.
And bring I know this is played out to say that, but I believe it, for them to bring their authentic self so that they can be themselves. So many people are working inside of companies and they don't feel like they can bring themselves to the company. They feel like they have to bring a mask.
Yeah.
They feel like they have to bring a costume.
Yeah.
They feel like they have to put on this facade of who they're not in order to not be picked on or isolated or whatever. And we really want that psychological safety, that people can bring themselves, no matter their backgrounds, no matter their religion, no matter their ethnicity, their whatever the culture they came from, that they can bring that to the table within the confines of the core values, which are the guardrails that we've set, right?
Yep.
Because there's one thing we don't outsource or don't delegate. Every single person that we hire, we are on the final interview. We're on that
Every
interview,
single
every
one?
single one of them.
Wow. Okay.
Because we want to make it clear that here are the core values. And do you understand them and do you buy into them?
Yeah.
Because to come into the company, if you're not aligned with the core values, we call our team members and they just embody this. We call them guardians of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And our team becomes guardians of the culture. And we have to help guard that as well. Because if somebody comes in and it's not a bad thing, it's to say, hey, there's another company out there
Sure.
that aligns perfectly with how you
It's just a
want to
misalignment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's a misalignment.
Yeah.
And so if we can have somebody that comes in and they say, man, I love these values. I love these core values that are set for this company. I want to live by those and I align with those.
Yeah.
Now they can be free to bring themselves within the confines, within the guardrails of those core values. And that's special. It keeps people happy, working with each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, just, to reiterate that point, that is, the very first thing you can do right to build the right kind of culture is to get the right people on the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
To hire the right people, and your core values. Yeah, they are your they're your guardrails, as you've expressed, right?
Yeah.
They are how you determine if somebody is the right fit,
Mm-hmm.
and if they can be in that space where they feel like they can show up as themselves and find meaning and purpose, right? In the way that everybody else in the organization shows up, right?
Yeah.
They can find the support they need from teammates, from leaders, right? They've all got each other's back, right?
Yeah.
But yes, sometimes, I mean, we all have different personal core values, whether we know them or not, right? Again, culture, there's culture at every level. Even individually, we have our own individual cultures, which are defined by our personal core values. And, if you haven't gone and, dug deep into yourself and defined either what those are or what you want them to be, and then, model the behavior, they exist, whether you know them or not. And sometimes, there's just, you miss the mark, you miss a line on core, personal core values versus, the business core values. And it's just not the right fit, but that's okay.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine. There's plenty of buses out there for people to align with.
Exactly.
That's one of my favorite questions that Greg asks is in all of our interviews is, what's most important to you, right?
Yeah.
Because what's so interesting too, and I think we're starting to see this more and more, not just in a linear way, but I think in an exponential way over the next several years, that people really want to know. They're conscious. Conscious consumerism. They want to know who they're interacting with. What do you do beyond just making money? Here's the yardstick that, businesses, yes, you have to make money, you have to make a profit,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you weave in and again, closely knit, I talk about CX and or what we call team experience, or TX also TX, with profits and with purpose, right? There's so many amazing examples of companies that do that really well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do meaningful work, when you have the opportunity to show up for each other, but I think this purpose economy and where we're headed, being something bigger than yourself and that will outlive anything that you're doing, I think is really what people are looking for. And there's so many cool companies that are doing, I mean, obviously Davis and what Cotopaxi has done here, you think early on Tom Shoes, right? The 1-for-1 kind of idea and the opportunity to give back. In fact, I'm thinking about shoes, Kizik just launched Kizik Cares, which is awesome. These opportunities and ways for companies to give back and really to show up outside of, you've got to make money.
Yeah.
But isn't it, this is one of the things that I say all the time, and my team's probably gonna roll their eyes, but one of the greatest ironies in life is the degree to which we think about ourselves, the unhappier we are, right? There's this kind of insatiable crave for more internally, right? When we just take a step back and say, man, when I reach out and help somebody else, man, not only are they happy, but I also am too. And how that works, I don't know. So the degree to which we put others' needs ahead of our own, both of us are happy. Yeah. And that kind of purpose-driven approach is, I think, where a lot of businesses.
So you guys have actually built,
or not.
You guys have built an ideal around this that's you use. I know you evangelize it in your organization. You've coined a phrase, right? and now you built a software platform,
Yeah.
based on this idea. It's called Build Then Bless, right?
Yep.
So Greg, tell us a little bit. We only have about 4 minutes left, but tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about what Build Then Bless means, and what, you guys are gonna have a product launch, fairly soon.
Yeah, it's actually already launched.
Oh, it is?
They
Okay.
No, I mean, it's kind of beta launch, but it's, there's a piece that's missing, but I'll just give you the quick rundown. Really what it's to help people become outward minded individuals. You're seeing inside of the business world a lot of sad, a lot of turnover, a lot of depressed, unhappy people in their jobs. And some of that obviously is clinical, and some of it is environmental, and people are in just the wrong spot, and it really takes a toll on their lives. And there's meaning and purpose. I have this quick little quote that, if it's okay, Mahatma Gandhi, he said, "In a gentle way, you can shake the world." And then there's this Forbes article that talks about 45% of Gen Zers want to work for a company that makes a positive difference in the world. That's just a fact. This is what it is. That's what the future is going to be. They intend to donate some of their earnings to causes they care about. They want to make a double impact. They later mentioned that paycheck is important, but purpose is key.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, I mean, I feel that, and that's what's Build and Bless is. We have built a program, a curriculum, a training, and then built some software that helps measure. There's never in the past that we know of have you had anything that enables you to measure culture.
Culture, yeah.
Because it's always been this nebulous, like, oh, culture, talk about culture. We've built this platform that helps you measure culture and enables our team to almost become philanthropists in and of themselves, rather than us going out and just, standing with a paycheck, or a check to some, big nonprofit in our suits and look at us, get a photo op, take some pictures. We've actually flipped that, reversed that with this program, and we've enabled and empowered our team to become the philanthropic arm of our company.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. I mean, I know our team would agree. For me, it's one of our favorite times of the week when we get together and we talk about some of those experiences we've had around that. I could go on for a long time, but I know you got to wrap up. So.
I've heard some of those stories too that you guys have told, in other podcasts and other forums, right? Of some of the cool things that your teams are doing to give back to each other, to others, outside the organization, to the community, to clients. It's really cool.
They see the need. They
Yeah.
see the need, and we're empowering them, because that's so many people say, if I had, I would.
Yeah.
And we're trying to enable, and empower.
It's so cool that you've built now, a platform so that you can help people scale that idea and that culture of outward mindedness, of giving, of
thinking of others.
Of thinking of others, right? Which, I mean, in the end, every business is in customer service, right? And if you don't figure out how to be outward minded in customer service, you're not going to be very successful, right?
Exactly.
So just kudos, guys. Like, that's super cool, and obviously, look up Greg, look up Derek, on LinkedIn if you want to find out more about Build and Bless, or if you want to find out more about Lemonade Stand.
Yeah.
So we are at time. I generally like to, ask my guests for their final piece of wisdom, on the way out. But if you can, 30 seconds, 1 minute each, maybe, what's the final kind of piece of wisdom you'd offer to the audience before we wrap up here?
Man,
go ahead, Derek.
Oh, there's a lot, but genuinely appreciate the opportunity, Earl, to be with you and have this conversation, and hope we've been able to share one or two things that will help. I think everyone can make a difference, in their cultures, no matter what, and make a difference in their own lives, right? Feeling empowered to go and make an impact and do something for someone. It can be done, right? Even as simple as a text, a card, a spoonful of comfort, right? Sending something off. But I'd say, really looking at, are you doing meaningful work that gets you really excited? And are you doing it with a team who inspires you? And lastly, are the economics right? Kind of in that order. We know a lot of people who make a lot of money who aren't happy, and who lose things that when they first set off, aren't the most important, or are the most important, but slowly become not the most important thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I'd say. Just find joy in the journey, right? Everyone sees the success at the very end, but day to day it can be tough. That's why I love and look up so much to our team members and to other leaders in our community like you and so many who show up in the community to try to make a difference. And that's who's inspiring. And every one of us can do that in some small way.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Great words, Derek. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I would just say to every single day, go and try to find somebody that needs your help. That's it. I mean, it may not sound like business advice, but it's business and life advice. Like if you do that, you will succeed. And not only that, is you'll be happy in the process.
Sure.
If every day you wake up,
Yeah.
every day you wake up and you figure, I want to put a smile on somebody's face, or I want to figure out a way to help this person, and I'm going to assume that they're having a rough day and assume the best in them and assume that they might be going through the worst, and figure out a way to bring a smile to their face and to lift their day and maybe even save them. You never know. I mean, every interaction, every phone call, every customer service, every time you go through the checkout stand at a grocery store, like there's always somebody that you can save their day, lift their spirits. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, gentlemen, thank you. Fantastic words of advice. I appreciate having you both on TechBeat. It's been such a fun conversation to talk a little bit about what you're building, how you built it, the culture behind it, what defines the way you think and operate and behave as an organization, right? Those things are important. Building with purpose, it is the way of the future. I mean, I think as a human race, we've evolved. We want to get beyond, just doing things for a paycheck or, for mundane reasons. It's about how do I make a greater impact, at a larger scale ultimately. So, gentlemen, this has been fantastic. Do you want to tell the audience really quick how to find Lemonade Stand and yourselves, and then we'll sign off.
lemonadestand.org, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Derek Miner, would love to connect. And I think we also made a commitment about books. We'll send those out. So anyone who's listening live,
post in the comment anytime, even a week from now. If you watch it, just post in the comment or DM us. We'll send you all 3 of them if you want.
Man, that's generous. Check you out, Greg.
You can also go to buildthenbless.com to figure out more about Build and Bless. And if you want to hear about it, get a demo or anything, we'd love to share that with you. That's kind of a big passion of ours.
So cool. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us here on TechBeat today. It's been a fantastic hour. We really appreciate your support, your viewership, and we're going to sign off. So
thanks,
have a wonderful day, everybody.